You know, there's a specific kind of silence you only get out here in the Ozarks. It's not an empty silence, it's a living one. It's the sound of wind filtering through 40-year-old pines, the distant bark of a fox, the hum of crickets that sounds like the heartbeat of the land itself. My grandfather used to tell me that land isn't just dirt you own, it's a member of the family that you have to take care of. I didn't truly understand what he meant until I woke up one Tuesday morning and realized someone was trying to murder it. My name is Mason Ford. If you saw me at the gas station, you probably wouldn't look twice, just a guy in a faded flannel shirt and boots that have seen more mud than pavement, driving a truck that rattles like a bag of bolts. I've lived on this 12-acre plot my entire life. It's a rough patch of earth, hilly and stubborn, tucked away at the end of a gravel road that most GPS maps don't even know exists. For decades, my only neighbors were the deer and the occasional lost delivery driver. That was, until Willow Creek Estates decided to eat the forest next door. It happened fast. One summer it was dense woods, and by fall, it was a sea of beige. Hundreds of cookie-cutter houses squeezed onto tiny lots, sold to people who liked the idea of the country but didn't want any of the dirt that came with it. And leading this army of manicured lawns was a woman named Patricia Vance. Patricia was the HOA president, a woman who treated life like a corporate merger. She drove a white luxury SUV that looked terrified to touch gravel, and she had a smile that was all teeth and no warmth. The conflict didn't start with bulldozers, it started with paper. Crisp, white envelopes appearing in my mailbox. First, they were offers, lowball numbers that wouldn't have bought a used sedan, let alone 12 acres of prime timberland. Then, they became suggestions: "Dear Mr. Ford, we noticed your barn is unpainted," or "the solar array in your field disrupts the visual harmony of our community view." I ignored them. I figured if I didn't poke the bear would go back to its latte and leave me alone. I was wrong. I remember the day the war officially started. I was out in my workshop, rebuilding the carburetor on my dad's old tractor, grease up to my elbows, when I heard tires crunching on my driveway. I walked out, wiping my hands on a rag, and there was Patricia. She was standing by my gate, holding a clipboard like a shield, wearing a pantsuit that cost more than my mortgage payments. "Mr. Ford," she said, her voice dripping with that fake, sugary politeness that sets your teeth on edge. "We need to discuss a mutually beneficial arrangement. Your property, it's becoming a problem for our Phase 2 expansion." I looked at her, then I looked at the woods behind me. "Patricia," I said, keeping my voice level. "This property has been here since before you were born. The only problem is that your expansion is trying to stand where my trees are." Her smile didn't flicker, but her eyes went cold. Dead cold. "Progress is inevitable, Mason. You can be part of the community, or you can be the obstacle we remove. We have lawyers, we have resources, and frankly, we have the county's ear. Think about it." She didn't wait for an answer. She just turned on her heel, got back in her pristine car, and drove off. I stood there in the dust, feeling a strange knot in my stomach. It wasn't fear. It was the feeling you get when the barometer drops and you know a tornado is forming. 2 weeks later, at 6 a.m., the world ended. Or at least, it sounded like it. I was shaken awake by a noise that vibrated the fillings in my teeth, the deep, guttural roar of heavy diesel engines. Not one, but 3 of them. I pulled on my boots, didn't even bother with socks, and ran out to the porch. The sun was just cutting through the mist, and there, lined up perfectly along my western boundary, were 2 excavators and a massive bulldozer. They weren't on my land, not technically. They were inches from the property line, their metal arms raised like siege weapons. "What the hell is this?" I shouted, running down the slope, my dog Roscoe barking furiously at the machinery. A foreman in a yellow vest waved a laminated sheet of paper at me. "Drainage project, buddy. HOA authorized. We're putting in a stormwater retention channel." "A channel?" I yelled over the engine noise. "You're digging a canyon." And they were. The bucket of the first excavator slammed into the red earth, tearing up 50 years of root systems in a single scoop. They weren't just digging a ditch, they were digging a moat. It was 6 feet wide, 6 feet deep, and it ran the entire length of my property line where it bordered their subdivision. But then, I saw the plan. The machines didn't stop at the border. They turned. They curved inward, cutting across the easement that connected my driveway to the main county road. I watched in horror as the steel teeth ripped through the gravel of my driveway, severing my only connection to the outside world. "You can't do that!" I screamed, stepping forward. "Stay back," the foreman warned. "This is a construction zone. We have a permit for easement modification." And there she was. Patricia Vance, standing safely on the other side of the growing trench, arms crossed, watching me with a look of absolute satisfaction. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. The message was clear: if you won't sell, we will bury you. By that evening, I was an island. My mailbox was on the other side of a 6-foot chasm. My trash cans were stranded. The mail carrier stopped, looked at the trench, shook his head, and drove off. Delivery trucks pulled up, idled for a minute, and turned around. I was landlocked in my own home. For the next week, life became a nightmare of logistics. To get groceries, I had to hike through the dense woods to the south, crossing a creek that soaked my boots, carrying bags back like a pack mule. Every morning, I woke up to the sound of them widening the trench, piling the dirt high on their side to create a berm so I couldn't even see the road anymore. It was psychological warfare. They wanted me to feel small. They wanted me to feel helpless. But the breaking point wasn't the noise. It wasn't the dust coating my porch. It was the water. 10 days into the siege, I went to the kitchen sink to fill the coffee pot. I turned the handle. A sputtering cough, a spit of brown mud, and then, nothing. The pipes groaned and went silent. My heart hammered against my ribs. I ran out the back door toward the well pump house, which sat near the edge of the property line. The thing about bullies like Patricia is that they thrive in the dark. They rely on the fact that nobody is watching, that it's just their word against yours, and since they have the fancy title and the HOA letterhead, people assume they're in the right. My goal was simple: turn on the lights. The morning after they cut my water, I didn't call the HOA office. I didn't beg. I edited a video. It was a simple 3-minute clip. No dramatic music, no voiceover, just the raw footage. It showed the excavator deliberately pivoting toward my well line. It captured the audio of the foreman laughing and saying, "She said to make it hurt, so let's make it hurt." It showed the water gushing into the mud. I posted it to the local community Facebook page, tagged the county commissioners, and titled it, "Sunny Hollow HOA Deliberately Destroys Water Supply of Elderly Neighbor." I went to make coffee with bottled water and waited. By noon, my phone was vibrating so hard it nearly fell off the table. The comments weren't just angry, they were nuclear. People in the subdivision, Patricia's own subjects, were horrified. Neighbors I had never met were tagging news stations. "Is this legal?" one woman commented. "That's Mason's place. He fixed my dad's truck for free last winter." "This is disgusting," wrote another. Patricia tried to control the narrative. The HOA official page posted a statement claiming I was a squatter obstructing critical infrastructure safety upgrades. But I was ready. I replied with another video, a time-lapse of them blocking my driveway, overlaid with the county survey map showing the trench was technically encroaching on my land by 18 inches. The tide was turning, but Patricia wasn't done. She was cornered, and a cornered animal bites. 3 nights later, at 2:43 a.m., my bedside tablet lit up. The perimeter alarm. Sector 4, the driveway entrance. I sat up, heart pounding. I tapped the screen. The night vision feed was crystal clear. A flatbed truck, lights off, was backing up to the edge of the trench. Two men in black hoodies were unloading massive concrete jersey barriers, the kind used on highways. They weren't just blocking the road, they were sealing the tomb. And there, standing by the cab of the truck, wrapped in a trench coat and holding a flashlight, was Patricia. She was directing them to drop the blocks inside my property line, effectively ensuring that even if I filled the trench, I'd have to rent a crane to move the concrete. This was it. The escalation I needed. I didn't grab the shotgun. That's what she wanted. She wanted me to come out waving a gun so she could call the SWAT team. Instead, I grabbed a high-powered spotlight, 30 million candle power, and my phone. I walked out onto the porch, Roscoe growling low beside me. I waited until the crane was hoisting a 2-ton block in the air. Click. I flooded the yard with blinding white light. The driver slammed the brakes. The block swung wildly in the air. Patricia shrieked, covering her eyes like a vampire caught in the sun. "Good evening, Patricia." I projected my voice, calm and steady. "Smile. You're live streaming to the sheriff's department. You're trespassing," she screamed, her voice cracking. "This is HOA business." "No," I said, walking down the steps, phone raised. "Trespassing is what you're doing. Vandalism is what those men are doing. And conspiracy to commit a felony? That's what you're doing." The two men looked at each other. They were hired muscle, probably off the books. They looked at the camera, then at the spotlight, and then at the swinging concrete block. "I'm out," the crane operator yelled. He lowered the block right where it was, on the HOA's side of the trench, crushing a row of Patricia's prized ornamental bushes, and started retracting the boom. "Don't you dare leave!" Patricia yelled, grabbing at the truck door. "I pay you." "Not enough for jail time, lady," the driver spat, revving the engine and peeling out in reverse, leaving Patricia standing alone in the mud, bathed in the harsh light of my spotlight. The sheriff's deputies arrived 10 minutes later. And this time, it wasn't the rookie. It was Sheriff Miller himself, a man I'd known since high school. He looked at the trench. He looked at the crushed bushes. He looked at the video footage on my tablet showing Patricia ordering the drop. "Ms. Vance," Miller said, tipping his hat. "I think you need to come with us. We have some questions about critical infrastructure sabotage and falsifying permits." But the real victory wasn't seeing her in the back of a cruiser. It was the courtroom, 2 weeks later. My lawyer, a sharp-witted woman named Elena, had done some digging. When we stood before the judge, Patricia's legal team tried to argue that the trench was a necessary community improvement. They presented the permit, signed by the county engineer, authorizing the work. Elena waited until they were finished. Then she stood up, holding a single piece of paper. "Your Honor," she said, her voice echoing in the silent room. "This permit is dated October 14th of this year. It is signed by Mr. Arthur Higgins, the county civil engineer." "That appears correct," the judge said, peering over his glasses. "The problem, Your Honor," Elena continued, dropping the bombshell, "is that Mr. Higgins passed away from a heart attack in 2021. Unless the HOA has a medium on their payroll, this signature is a forgery." The silence in that courtroom was heavy enough to crush a truck. Patricia's face went the color of old oatmeal. Her lawyer closed his briefcase, sat down, and looked at the ceiling. The gavel didn't just fall, it thundered. The judge ordered the HOA to fill the trench within 72 hours. He ordered them to repave my driveway, replace my well pump, and pay for a new, security-grade fence. He also issued a restraining order against Patricia Vance and recommended the district attorney pursue felony fraud charges. I stood on my porch 3 days later, holding a cup of hot coffee made with fresh, clean well water. The sun was shining. The roar of diesel engines was back, but this time, it was a beautiful sound. I watched as the county crews, not the HOA hacks, pushed the red dirt back into the hole, burying the hatred, burying the division. It's been 6 months since then. Patricia sold her house and moved 2 towns over. The new HOA board is terrified of me, they send me Christmas cards now. But the best part? The neighbors. The people from the subdivision started walking down my freshly paved driveway. Not to complain, but to introduce themselves. One guy, a young father named Steve, stopped by yesterday. I just wanted to say sorry, he told me, looking at the woods. We didn't know. She told us you were crazy. But I saw your video. You were just protecting your home. That's all any of us can do, Steve, I said, shaking his hand. I looked out over my land this evening. The scar of the trench is still visible, a faint line where the grass is a lighter shade of green, but it's healing. I kept the cameras up, though. And I kept the sign I hung on the new gate. It doesn't say, keep out. It says, Ford Farm. Established 1975. Deep roots break hard rock. It makes you think, though. We live in a world that loves to draw lines, between us and them, old and new, rich and poor. People like Patricia think they can use money and rules to dig trenches between those worlds. But she forgot the most important thing about a trench: if you dig it deep enough, and you stand on the edge long enough, eventually, the ground gives way, and you're the one who falls in. So, what do you guys think? Did I go too far with the spotlight and the ambush, or was it exactly what she deserved? And tell me, have you ever had a neighbor who thought they owned the world? Let me know in the comments. I'll be on the porch reading them, right where I belong.